right, everyone, welcome to our latest webinar focused on users, access privileges, privilege sets, and time cards. I'm going to dive right in here. So share my screen. Can we all see that? Can you see my wonderful? All right. So as you can see, I'm already logged in here. We're going to be primarily focused in the settings section of the program because these are administrative functions that are kept in settings. So areas of focus here, we're going to be looking at users. We're going to be looking at privilege sets. We're going to be looking at time cards. And then I'll show you how time cards work in the program, how they're rung in, how they're adjusted if needed, and then some reporting around it. But first, we're going to start at users. Got to have a user in order for them to clock in and out. Here's a list of users. As you can see, these are all lovely characters that work at our bakery. If we click on one of them, we see we've got just basic details about the user. I'm not going to get too in depth on all of this. This is also though where we set the password. Got to be in edit mode. You can click to change it. You'll be prompted to enter a new password and confirm it. Do it twice. That's how that works. If you need someone you need someone to not be able to access the system but need to maintain their user record, you can just clear their password and they won't be able to log in. Obviously, other employment-based stuff over here. And then if we go to access privileges, this is the meat of determining what a user can do. Time cards will just show their time card punch history and employee charges. If you allow them to charge against an account versus just giving them a discount or something like that, that's all managed over here. You can invoice them. You would do that over in customers, but invoices can be issued to them, which you would then likely pay down. Generally, we see paid down with wages, but we don't see this a whole time anymore. It's kind of gone out of it. Regardless, we're going to return to access privileges here in just a moment. I do want to kind of step out of here for a second and go back to the user list. On this list, we do have an edit all. We have some edit all lists for users. One is around employment, right? You can give them a job title and assign them to a department. I can also edit rate of pay. Okay. We also have commissions. If they're, I think this has been deprecated. Not entirely sure. I'll have to look around at this. Obviously, nobody's using it right now. Otherwise, I'd know. And then finally, we have stored privileges. This list is populated from privilege sets, which we'll get into in a little bit. And then we'll circle back to this. Your BakeSmart view only really comes into play if you're a multi-unit bakery, if you have multiple locations, right? So if you want a user, say Lisa Simpson, to only be able to access information at their local store that they're assigned to, which is here in the store column here, right? She is only going to be able to run reports on Main Street, see availability of Main Street, those sorts of things. Global view, as you can see an administrator has here, is able to run reports and view inventory levels, product on hand levels, all of that sort of stuff across all locations. So it's something to keep in mind there if you want to control what people are able to do. Okay, so going back to the list here, let's dive into access privileges. As you can see here, we've got these organized by tickets, primarily point of sale functions, things like here, primarily point of sale functions, all the way down to here, and then order specific functions. And then we've got more back of house materials and production, which I'll get into here, the classic create, read, update, delete kind of thing here. Drawer management, generally for a shift lead or a front of house manager. Time cards, obviously for manager or admin. Customer and invoice management for anyone who's handling AR, those types of things. Gift cards, being able to issue gift cards without a ticket. We'll get into all this. And then our admin settings, and then our report settings. I'm going to hit all of these very briefly just to give a rundown just for the sake of completeness. Enter tickets. This is going to allow someone to ring in transactions. You might think, why wouldn't this be checked? A lot of times, all of this will be unchecked just for users, maybe back of house users that aren't using BakeSmart who need to be able to clock in. Right, so they would only come into the home screen, be able to hit the clock up at the top, clock in and out. But this would allow people to enter sales, enter transactions. Server only access to tickets. This allows them to enter in transactions, but not pay transactions, right? So they can't handle payments. They can only build a ticket that would then be rung out at a cash register by a cashier. View and edit existing tickets and orders. This is going to give people the access to make modifications to on hold tickets, bring up tickets that are open, view orders that are open, and modify those as well. Pre-entered and custom discounts. You check out our discounts and coupons and fees webinar. You'll see what that's all about. You can pre-enter discounts. Like, so for example, the employee discount, if you only want your employees to be able to do a 10% senior discount and 20% employee discount, they would only be able to do pre-entered discounts. If you want to give them the flexibility to give a 50% discount for some reason, they would have the ability to enter custom discounts on their own where they can just make up the value. Whether or not they can accept coupons, those are all preset by definition. Whether they can enter in variable priced items, where the user is determining the price of something, if it's by weight or an open deco, something like that when taking a cake order. Whether they can accept employee charge payments for a user, whether they're allowed to ring out other staff for employee charges, and whether or not they can issue refunds. If they can't issue refunds, we have them enter a maximum refund amount here. Whether they can cancel tickets, it's a pretty common one. You're able to cancel during a transaction. You start a transaction and you want to abandon it, you can cancel it. Whether you can void payments, that would happen obviously after the payment's taken, you would then void it or void a ticket, which again, the ticket's completed, you would then void the ticket. Those usually higher level permissions. Whether you can delete items after the receipt is printed. This is again for the server only thing. This is intended if you're doing table service to not allow someone to ring something into the kitchen, have it printed and produced for this customer, and then delete it so that customer doesn't have to pay for it. It's sort of avoiding a friends and family freebies or theft, if you want to call it that. Whether or not you can add tips to credit card payments, again, this anymore is getting pushed off more and more to Clover devices that are customer facing. So less and less common that you're manually entered in tips that are written onto receipts. If you're still doing that, give us a call. There's a better way. Whether or not they can process external card payments, saying, hey, this is processed in some other manner, not through the system specifically, but you want to note that a card payment was made. And then the ability to waive credit card fees if there's an objection to them. This really should only be used if someone says, hey, I'm paying with a debit card. You can't discriminate against card paying folks. If you're charging a payment fee, you got to charge it on all card payment transactions, credit card payment transactions. Waiving it for some customers, but not others, can get you in trouble with the card issuers, Visa, MasterCard, and the like. Okay, so that's tickets. Orders, whether or not you can take an order for a future date, whether or not you can cancel orders that have been taken for a future date. Once an order has been up or delivered, that order is closed. Reopening an order would allow you to reopen it to manipulate it in some way. We don't allow editing of closed orders. We can require deposits on orders. This permission of override deposits would allow you to override that, along with required fields, which can be set. These are oftentimes name, date and time required, pickup option, phone number. Don't know why you'd want to override those, but it's there. And then create and edit standing orders. Again, this is our wholesale module. So kind of a different setting. Generally, there's only a handful of people in a bakery handling that, not like front counter staff or even if you have a call room or something like that, order taking staff. It's not often managing the standing orders. There's usually one person from our experience that really manages that aspect of the business. So those are our order specific settings. Our back of house, we come across, these are basically the different tables we have: products, display cases, inventory, formulas, batches, purchase orders, and suppliers. And then we have the various permissions. Like, can you look at them? Are you allowed to go view these records? Can you create new records for any of these information types or data types? Once they're created, can you edit them, right? This is essentially the access to the edit button up here, right? So create would hide, if you don't have access to create, it would hide the new button. If you don't have access to edit, it's going to hide the edit button. Delete is just not going to give you the delete function in our tag list functions. And then view costs are separate, right? Whether or not you want your staff to see what costs are for products, inventory formulas, things like that. The view button, it will just gray out what's in the list of them to be able to view when you're over in lists. So the products, batches, things like that. Receive shipments is on the back of house home screen, there's a button to receive shipments. This is when POs are delivered, shipments from suppliers. You can mark them as received, assign lot numbers to them, all of that. Once those are received, a purchase order will get closed. This permission would give you the ability to open that purchase order, but you can modify, manually change inventory levels. We have supplier bid sheets. This will update this function. You export a bid sheet, give it to your supplier. They update their prices in it, and then you import it. It's a quick way for us to manage pricing costs for inventory items. Whether or not you're able to manage batches in production, and whether or not you can close those batches. So that's kind of it for that. Register drawers, whether you can manage register drawers. This is the manage drawers button on the home screen that will give you a list of all the open and closed drawers. It will also limit your access to the drawer list in lists. Whether you can open your own drawer, meaning you can assign the cash drawer to yourself, if you have that access, and then whether you can do a kick drawer, a non-sale kick, physically opening the cash drawer till. Time cards, whether or not you can view other people's time cards, whether or not you can adjust people's time cards. Pretty straightforward there. Again, here's our BakeSmart view, whether it's local or global. We touched on that before, but this is where the actual setting resides. And then manage customers. This is whether you can get in there and manipulate customer records, whether you can delete customers, whether you can allow them to exceed their credit limit, whether you can issue an invoice to them or void an invoice that has already been issued. Gift cards, whether or not you can issue a gift card, this is for a sale, a transaction where it's rung in and then you swipe and activate the gift card number. Issuing gift cards without a ticket is more of a remediation. To make a customer comes in, they're unhappy with something, you're willing to issue them store credit, you do it in the form of a gift card. So you would do that without a transaction to accompany it, just activating the gift card, setting a balance to it, and being done. And then also more of a managerial function is allowing gift card balances and loyalty points to be adjusted. Shouldn't be a need to do this too much. It does happen, but this is the permission that would make it happen. All right, so now we're getting in the home stretch here. Administration. If you're an administrator, consider all of these checked. This checks everything without having to actually go through individually and do it. But this will give you that capability. Separately, whether or not you can view or set passwords, change BakeSmart online temporary settings. Those are over in online order settings, and then access edit all lists, right? Where we're making sweeping changes across entire product lists or user lists, things like that. Reports, we have different reports level. No access means you don't need to have that information at all. Manage reports is the highest level. I can generate custom reports. I can run custom reports. I can view saved reports. I can delete saved reports. I can modify saved reports. Access custom reports means you can run a report and select the criteria as you wish against that report. Access saved reports is any report that's been saved in the system as a saved report, which if you watch our webinar on reporting, you'll get, nice, just go reference that one. A full rundown on how saved reports work. And then if you manage reports, you're able to assign those reports to individual users and they can access those assigned reports. And you can actually lock the criteria of those reports. So if you want a manager to say, be able to, front of house manager to look at what sales were yesterday, but not necessarily all of last year, you can set the criteria to yesterday, lock it, and then they can't modify the dates on it. So they're stuck looking in a specific day range or some other criteria you can lock down. Pretty cool feature. Here we can assign what reports they can run, right? So you can limit their access to various reports. Again, if I'm an administrator, I can run them all. So it's not going to hide any of these. But these are the various reports. So you can say, hey, you can only run ticket reports or gift and loyalty reports or back of house reports, if that's what makes sense. Sales totals is going to give you access to revenue information. Employee wages, obviously going to give you access to wage info or wages earned. So on those reports, so this would be a time card report. These would be ticket reports, most likely, or sometimes item reports. All right, that was a lot. That was really fast, but I think complete enough for to be reasonable. I'm going to go touch on privilege sets real quick because this is a lot to manage for each individual, coming through here and clicking everything and making it all right. So what we have to help this is privilege sets, right? So then we're just looking at, hey, administrator, you're an administrator, you're good. You can do all the things, right? Baker, hey, just looking at formulas, you only need to view formulas. Realistically, maybe you need to view batches, create batches, edit, probably not delete them. You might want to know formula cost if you're trying to keep them up on things and maybe inventory too, right? So I've just modified this. The baker's not dealing with suppliers or POs. So I just got hands in dough, right? So I've made changes to this privilege set. Now I want to update all of the users who are assigned as a baker privilege set, right? So I click update users. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 bakers. So, hey, do we want to update for these? Yes, we do. So they've all been updated now. So if we go to Betty Boop, we can see that same scheme, right? Across for all of them. Wilma, Captain Crunch, all of them, right? So privilege sets is a great way to group update, set groups and sort of policies for specific roles within your bakery. So you're not updating on an individual basis. Now you can still set a supervisor cashier, right? We have all of them, and then say, hey, Dora, you're just a little, a little bit above here, everybody else. So you actually have the supervisor function, and we're also going to allow you to adjust gift card balances, right? So you can customize it after you've updated it, or set a separate privilege set of like cashier supervisor 2, something like that. But that's how privilege sets work. Again, this gets set here, right? So if I was to make her a baker, it's going to fill her in that way, right? But back to cashier supervisor, we're here, we can check that, right? So that's how that works. Again, we can set those here on privilege sets, right? You can look at all of them, and if you build your privilege sets out and then assign it to the users as you're setting everything up, you can save time to do this here and not have to click the individual for every user. All right, let me get mine. Okay, so then we're going to move on to time cards here. We have some time card settings here under time cards, reasons for adjustment, and then departments if we want to allow users to clock into departments. We don't see that setting here. The reason being that that setting is actually in stores. The reason for that is depending on where your stores are, you can have different labor laws around wages, around overtime, those sorts of things, especially if you're in different states, operating in different states. Most aren't, some do. So under stores, we have time card settings, right? So whether or not we want to print a receipt when someone clocks in, we can do that. We do flash their time on the screen, so it's not really necessary, but if you want your employees to be able to have a paper copy here. So we can have overtime kick in on a day. I think California does that. I'm not totally sure about any other states, or hours in a week, right? Or both. So the default overtime rate is here. California overtime, I think that's going to give you, yeah, so that gives you second level overtime here. When it's more than 12 hours, then you're above 1.5, you're at 2 times, right? Here's the prompt for department when clocking in that I was talking about, and then prompt for tips when clocking out for the day. Again, that's not used a whole lot because we're already tracking that in the credit card program, so, or through credit card processing. Whether or not you have paid lunches or paid breaks, or whether or not they can take breaks. I think everybody's going to take breaks these days. But and then what the break time is. Subtract minutes late from paid break. I think that's like if you just give 15 minutes and they take 18 minutes, you're not going to pay for those extra 3 minutes, right? So how does this all work, right? From the home screen, again, just orient ourselves. This is our front of house home screen. This is our back of house home screen. This is our clock in and out button right here, the clock. So we hit that, they enter their password. Again, we're asking them to clock into a department here because I just turned that on. So let's say I'm a decorator, right? I'm in for the day. I've clocked into the decorator department. I've just clocked in, so it's no hours accrued so far, but 31.6 for the week there, right? So I do things, I'm working, and then I go and I clock out. Well, it's going to ask me what I'm clocking out for. Am I done for the day? Am I taking a break? Am I going to lunch? What's going on here? So if I'm just out for a break, all right, there I've accrued my 0.01 hours, 36 seconds of work. Now, when I clock back in, it's going to know that I clocked out from a break. So it's automatic. It's not going to ask me what I'm clocking in from. It always knows what your last clock out was, and then knows what your next clock in is going to be. So again, maybe I'm going to be cleaning some stuff up here. So now I'm clocking in for janitorial with my accrued hours for the day on there. You can see that the week updated as well to that 0.61 instead of 0.60. So I'm clocked in now. That's how clocking in and out goes. If I make a mistake and I have administrator access, I can come to time cards. Here's my time cards for the day by default. I actually forgot to clock in until I was clocking out for my break there. I'm sure that never happens. So I can adjust this time card and say, hey, I actually got here at 8:25 a.m. today, right? Got to clock in. All right. So that adjustment is noted here. I'm at 6 hours worked. And that's how we do time card adjustments. Now, report. So time card is a report. This is the last thing we're really going to touch on here. Build a report, time cards. So we can enter a date, right? So we can say last week, right? Summarized by employee. This is a summary, right? So we just want to know hours, really. So it's going to show hours work, how much of that was non-overtime, right? Here's your overtime hours against that, what their wages were for that. If we have wages entered into the user record, and the ability to view wages turned on the user record that's actually running the report. So yeah, that's it here. Whether or not there were any double overtime hours earned, and then what the total wages are here. This can be exported as an Excel file and sent to payroll, right? So 5, right? That'll go right to your desktop. You open that up. We're all going to learn that I don't pay for Excel here in just a moment. That opens, and we'll have that detail here, right? So then you can send that off. That's about it for users, access privileges, privilege sets, and time cards. Any questions on that? We good here? All right. Well, thanks again for joining us. Really appreciate it. Any questions, you can book time with us on our website. Give us a shout. Hope everybody's doing well and enjoying the end of summer. Take care.